Can the exhilaration of adventure lead to higher profits for your business, allowing your creative side as an entrepreneur, causing you to laugh straight to the bank? Could creativity in entrepreneurship actually be a competitive advantage? Well, if you're interested to learn the answer to that very question, I've got some statistical data I want you to consider. Business and economic studies reveal a strong link between creativity and economic prosperity. According to a 2023 report from the U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis, it revealed art and culture economic activity as a key component for the art and culture economy to continue to grow. It also says that the art and culture economy is growing faster than the broader U.S. economy as a whole. This report also indicated that the art and culture economy contributed up to 4.2% of the U.S. gross domestic product, totaling a total of approximately $1.7 trillion. The sector's growth of approximately 6.6% outpaced the total U.S. economy, which grew by a total of 2.9%. Meanwhile, business creativity is defined as the ability to generate novel and useful ideas to solve problems, improve processes, or develop products or services. You have to be comfortable with adapting to change, questioning the status quo, and combining existing concepts in a unique way to create a competitive advantage or achieve organizational goals. Gamification in business is a big driver in accomplishing such a desired outcome, and that's good news for my friend Pape, who went from a starving artist to a thriving creative entrepreneur. He's a TEDx speaker, author, and creative business strategist known as the Santa for Nerds. With 20 years of success as a creative entrepreneur, Paul has designed custom collectibles for Disney, Nickelodeon, and Universal, all while building his own creative and successful design studio. He's the creator of Gamifying Business and the author of The Creative Player's Handbook to Business, which is a revolutionary approach to translating intimidating business concepts into language that creatives can actually understand. And Pape joined me this week to tell me more about how gamifying business can allow creative entrepreneurs to master the unglamorous parts of business so that their creative juices can continue to flow. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. you're ready, I'll take a moment to welcome you to the program. And I'm super excited to talk to you about gamifying business this afternoon. Great to see you on this Monday, and happy Monday to you, my friend.
Thank you. Happy Monday to you as well. Let's do this.
Absolutely. So, Paul, I'm curious to dive into the whole concept of gamifying business and why it's such a lucrative strategy to grow your bottom line and have fun at the same time. What are your thoughts there, my friend?
Well, you're absolutely right. I think we spend 5/7 of our week at work. I mean, we're actually slaving away. And so we might as well have fun doing it. And I'm a strong believer in having fun with your business. I've been doing it for over 30 years. And so I feel like we shouldn't be wasting that time looking forward to the weekend. We should spend every bit of time that we can, enjoying as much as we can out of the work that we have to do. So if we are required to work to make a living, to be able to pay for everything, it's good to have that information. So I think it's absolutely vital that we have fun with it. And then with gamifying it, we've learned through many scientific studies that reward based processes are more apt to be taken on by people as opposed to just working without that carrot on the stick. And so what gamifying does is it actually pulls into that, where we use the dopamine reaction to help you further attain your goals by putting small achievable rewards into actual business that we're performing.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Paul, I know that you're a TEDx speaker, and as you mentioned, you've got 20 years in the game of being a creative entrepreneur, and I know that you've designed custom collectibles for companies like Disney, Universal, and Nickelodeon, my friend, while also building your own sort of design and business, my friend. So tell me about that experience and the lessons you've learned about being successful in business. What are your thoughts there?
Well, I think one of the biggest misconceptions that we have out there is that if you're an artist or you're doing something artistic for a career, you have to be a starving artist to do so. And what I learned pretty early on is that that's a mindset that just needs to be course corrected. So as far as getting into this, I did start out just like every other creative does. I didn't know exactly what I was doing or who I was pitching to. And I kind of stumbled into a good idea. It was actually quite by accident. I had designed a couple figures for a friend of mine who had put it submitted it to a blog post called Super Punch. And this is before everybody had a blog or a website. And so what this allowed, and it basically went viral. And what happened from that is people started contacting me, asking me if I could make them custom pieces as well, more me's. And eventually from there, it went from me's to avatars to cake toppers to wedding pieces to working with doing custom carbonites that ended up going to Disney, and then just basically saying yes to everything and just seeing how to figure it out, not getting held up by the possibilities. I don't say no. So what that did is it allowed me to kind of create a persona where you could ask for anything and I could help. That's why my TEDx talk is called Santa for Nerds. It's actually a name that was given to me by a former client. She had mentioned that because I can make whatever you need, that I'm kind of like Santa for Nerds. And we really like that as far as a way to describe what it is that I do. So I was doing that for about 20 years. I started working with larger companies, The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon, Nickelodeon, as you mentioned before, Disney, Universal. And basically what would happen is people would just have requests that they weren't sure how to fulfill, be it a corporate request or an individual request, and they would just ask me if I could figure it out. And I love problem solving, and so that happened. Where Gamify steps into this is that I was sitting in my basement studios, is where I work. It's where I'm at right now. And I was bored and kind of lonely just working on stuff by myself. And so I got onto a platform called Twitch. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's a gaming platform for the most part, but about 20% of them are actually creatives on there. And I just started sitting in front of a camera on the daily and just doing my work and answering questions. And what I found in the 6 years that I was doing that is that people kept asking the same questions over and over again. And so I thought, well, there's got to be a better way to get this information out to all creatives. And from there, there was the seeds of gamified business.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about a gamifying business, my friend. It's a book that you wrote, and you call it a revolutionary approach that take or translates, the mundane parts of doing business and to make them into language that creatives can understand. So I'm wondering if you can tell me more about it, my friend.
Well, so most business concepts are very linear. The thought process is very straightforward. And unfortunately for creatives, much like myself, we don't think in a linear way. I like to think of it more of we think in a clouds type of way. We're kind of a little bit everywhere all at once. And so what I was encountering with the creatives that I was helping to coach was that they weren't understanding the concepts of business. They were either concepts that went over their head, or it was just too daunting. And what I discovered is that if we talk to them in a language that we all pretty much understand, which is gaming, because we're inundated with gaming opportunities throughout our life these days. I grew up with game systems. You can find them on your phone now or your desktop. They're everywhere. We all understand the basic principles of gathering a character and moving them from level 0 to level 10. And that same concept works in business. There are challenges that you have to encounter. There is upgrades that you have to make to your person or your character, which would be your business. And all of these terminologies that the creatives were getting stuck on, these business terms like ROAS, like return on ad spend, or what your market share is, all of this didn't make sense. But once I started turning them into concepts that were familiar with them because they're used to gaming, things really started to fall into place for them. So I found out that it's not that creatives don't understand business, it's just they don't speak that same language, and so they need an interpreter. And so what Gamified Business does is it interprets the language of business into something that is more understandable, easier to access for the everyday person, and it makes business more fun because you're thinking of your business as an adventure as opposed to the thing that I have to do every day to earn money.
Yeah, absolutely. And as an aside, Paul, on this whole business and entrepreneurship venture doesn't work out, my friend, if you've got a radio voice you can put to use, okay?
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Or at least fill in for Santa at Christmas, okay? No, I'm only kidding.
I'm sorry. Ho, 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 ho. That's what I should be doing there.
That's right, my friend. And, Paul, I'm curious to get your definition of how you define a creative entrepreneur and how that term has evolved over the years. What are your thoughts there?
So I think when I say creative, I think a lot of people automatically go towards art or something that is an arts related field. But I don't agree with that. I think that anybody who's got the drive and the ambition to be an entrepreneur, to start their own business, regardless of whether or not it's an art-based business or an actuary or a chef, or it doesn't matter. When you have to think about all the different aspects of your business that goes into entrepreneurship, that takes a level of creativity. When you go to a 9-to-5 job where you have a boss and there's a hierarchy structure, you're pretty much being told what to do. But as an entrepreneur, you're on your own. You have to wear all the different hats. You have to do every aspect of business until you can find somebody to take that burden off of you. And I think that that's where the word creative entrepreneur comes from. I think it's an acknowledgement that entrepreneurs are people who are interested in taking their idea and making it public. They're using their skill sets. A creative entrepreneur is pretty much the same person, but I like to tack on that bit there because it empowers them, to let them know that they've got more power and more it's almost like a superpower to be able to do all of these aspects of business. You may not do them all well, but at least you understand the process that goes behind them, so that when we go to talk about something like gamifying your business, you understand all the different facets of your business that we need to tackle in order to make you more successful.
Yeah, absolutely. And Paul, I know that you work with artists, creatives, and other business professionals and designers to use gaming principles and the mechanics of adventure to make their businesses more profitable and efficient, my friend, without sacrificing sort of their knack for being artistic. So, how can you be a successful business without sacrificing your ability or your keen sense of being artistic, my friend? What are your thoughts there?
So I think a big part of it is artists, in this case, feel that success is a form of selling out, which is a weird thing to think about. To be successful, you have to let go of your artistic, your drive, the thing that makes you unique. But with Gamify Business, what we do is we actually flip that script. We ask two questions right off the bat. The first one is, what is your passion? What is the thing that you love to do? And then the second question, which is the one that takes a little bit of introspection to really understand, is what do you do with that passion that no one else does, or very few? If you can answer that question honestly, you've got yourself the seed for your business. And so you're never letting go of your creative qualities, the thing that really makes you stand out as an artist. Instead, what you're doing is you're amplifying it by really leaning into that thing that makes you special and unique, and you are positioning yourself to be able to sell that aspect of it. Now, one of the things that I want to make sure that all of my creative, especially the artistic customers or clients of mine understand is that that seed, that little bit of information, that thing that makes you stand out is really where your superpower lies. And we can build an entire network around that. You don't need to be trying to sell your work to millions of people. You need to find the people who really truly enjoy that niche that you are creating. And in a world with 8.3 billion people, it's not that difficult to find 100 to 1,000 people who really appreciate your point of view and your perspective. But also in that regard, I really emphasize with all of my clients, regardless of whether or not they're artistic or not, that we're not here to sell products. We're here to sell yourself as the creative entrepreneur. I use a phrase, quit selling your stuff, sell yourself. And the reason that is because we're in a place where our main competition are companies like Amazon and Walmart, which can sell things for $1. Well, if you're putting your blood, sweat, and tears and your time into your work, you can't sell it for that little and still make a profit off of it. So what we encourage our customers to do, our clients, is that they look at everything that they create as if it's a magic item. And that magical item is going to cost more because it does truly reflect your soul being put into the thing that you're selling. And so we want to make sure that and that's another way for them to not lose the thread of who they are as an artist or as a creative. They are making sure that that's the emphasis and not the thing that sits further back.
Yeah, absolutely. And Paul, I'm personally curious to ask you this next question. So I'll tell you a little bit of a story before I do. So, Paul, anyone that listens to my podcast knows that I was born with cerebral palsy, and I advocate for the full inclusion of folks with disabilities in the workforce. And I truly believe if you have a creative gene, it also allows you to break down the barriers towards inclusion. So I'm curious, how do you think folks with disabilities can be better infused in the creative entrepreneurial space and also the workforce as well? What are your thoughts there, my friend?
Well, my son actually has ADHD and a touch of autism as well. And and some of my clients are actually on the autism spectrum, and I've had the opportunity to work with them. And what we find is it's not a disability. You just have a different perspective, and that perspective is what makes you unique. As far as being able to put you into the workforce and have you do the things that you're passionate about, I don't see any reason not to. The biggest hangup that we have in business or in a real job is that we want everyone to do things a very specific way, and we're more focused on the process rather than the outcome. If we instead switched gears a little bit and thought about what it is that we're trying to achieve, which would be outcome based, and then put parameters on it, like guardrails, then how a person gets to that point, as long as they stay within the parameters and they achieve the goal in within those parameters, whether that be money, materials, or time, then it shouldn't matter how they get there. And so people with disabilities, I think, just they might have to take a different route to achieve the goal, but that doesn't mean that the goal is not achievable. And that's one of the things that we like to encourage people to think about, especially in this, is you know your challenges better than anyone else. You can come work for me, and I would have to inquire with you, what are the challenges that you encounter so that I can adjust the work to be with you. But if instead I said, hey, Kevin, I'd really like for you to help me with this project. And you're like, I think I can do that. I don't really mind how you get there, as long as you can help me get to the end with it, staying within the parameters. And so to me, I think it gives a little bit more ownership to the individual, and it allows them to feel like they're truly contributing to their job as opposed to being just a mindless worker or a robot within it.
Yeah, absolutely. And Paul, I'm wondering if you can go back to your starving artist days. And I'm curious, what would you tell yourself now that you know now that you wouldn't know, that you didn't know back then, to help you sort of accelerate your growing and learning process? What would you tell yourself back then, my friend?
I think the biggest one is to be true to yourself. I'm a guy who likes to do a lot of different things, and for a while, what I was doing was taking on a lot of work for little to no pay because I wasn't very confident in who I was. And the longer I've been doing this, the more I've realized what I do has never really changed. The only thing that's really changed is how much I charge and the clientele that I'm attracting with the prices that I have. And I think that if I would have known that when I first started out, there would have been less times where I'm really wondering how I'm going to pay the bills and raise a family. I think I would have been a lot more secure in who I was and how I was presenting myself. And so if I was to give myself any advice, it's to be confident in who you are and to stick with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And a big part of your job, Paul, is helping your clients understand that business can be a part of an adventure, and it can be fun, engaging, and profitable at the same time. So if I put you in a room of 100 new business owners and they wanted their business to be more fun and engaging, I'm wondering what sort of a recipe would you give them, or steps to follow to make their business more fun, engaging, and deeply fulfilling, my friend? And why do you think business people need to tap into the better sense of adventure, my friend?
Well, I think the first thing that I would do is I'd have them create a character sheet. And this is basically a thing that we have to do in every game that we play is we have to know who it is that we're playing. And in the game of life, that's you. And we really need to understand who we are. It takes a bit of reflection and understanding of ourselves, our strengths and weaknesses. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with is admitting that they have weaknesses to begin with. And so creating a character sheet allows them to have a little bit of separation from who they are. Instead of saying, I have this deficiency, you can say, my character does, even though the character is yourself. And in a room full of 100 entrepreneurs or business owners, I would tell them to do the exact same thing. Create your character sheet and be honest with yourself. No one will see these answers except for you. And so you need to be as honest as you can, because once we have the character sheet, that's when the fun truly begins. The first thing we do is we go looking for group. And these are people who will help you to round out the deficiencies that you have. So let's say you're really good at development of ideas, but you're really poor or not as great at marketing the ideas. Well, then what you'd want to do is you want to find a person who is got the strength in marketing. They may not need to be a person who's good at ideation, but they have to be good at marketing. And you want to add those people to your group. We have an expression in gaming, which is you don't want 5 warriors to go out and to fight because they're going to wipe, which means that their adventure is going to fail. In business is the exact same. You need a well-rounded group of people to help you build a solid foundation to be able to adventure. And
Yeah.
so that's where we start. We start with the character sheet, then we go looking for group, and then as far as making it fun, that's where the challenges truly come in business, we often find ourselves with a ragtag team of individuals who help run your business. And some of them are very loud and boisterous, extroverted individuals, and some are more reserved, introverted individuals, but their contribution are just as equal. And so when we get into the gaming part of it, we apply challenges to them that their business would face. Now, each time I do this, this is completely custom to the business. So I can use examples, but it's never going to be the same over and over again. But what we do is we ask them, what are the main hurdles that you encounter in your business? What are your pain points? And when I find those out, what we can do is we can create a monster or a campaign to kind of go towards that. A lot of it is, a lot of companies are looking for seed money. So for us, that's going to the dragon and getting a dragon's hoard. You really want to go forth and do that. Now, that takes multiple skills to attain. You have to have the right marketing, you have to have the right paperwork, you have to have the right ideation. And those people are the ones who would spearhead this adventure. So everyone gets an equal voice in how to approach it. But obviously, if there is a leader to the group, which is typically the business owner, they're going to be the one who gets to make the final decision. But they have all of these support people there to back them up. And I think that's the part that gets people really excited about it, because they can see that there is an end goal, there's a task to be accomplished, and everybody is there to contribute.
Yeah, absolutely. And Paul, you are someone who believes that a lot of people value more traditional advice rather than trying to find a more creative side to business. And sometimes, traditional language, as you put it, can sometimes be a foreign language, my friend. So what do you think is the key to reversing that mindset and having more fun in business? What are your thoughts there?
Well, I think it all comes down to one statement, Kevin. It's the way we've always done it. And I hate that statement because if everything that you did was super successful, then you wouldn't need advice to make your business go further. And so we need to step outside of our comfort zone and try something that's a little different. And sometimes the best ideas are the ones that come from left field, from somebody who isn't in the forest. The expression can't see the forest through the trees. It's because you're in the middle of the business and you may not understand something that's completely obvious to someone from the outside. And the way that I've approached business for the last 30 years, is that I don't do traditional. I've always mowed my own path. And so when a company brings me in and starts asking me questions or telling me about their pain points, my mind automatically starts coming up with different ideas and processes that I think would be good because I'm not tied down into their systems. And when I say them out loud, it either has one of two results. One is that the idea is original, it's something that they're interested in, and they can move forward with it. Or they automatically gut react to say that's a bad idea and here's why, but that also gets them thinking about their business and their processes so that we can then keep moving the needle forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And Paul, I'm interested into investigating what is known as the creative economy, and specifically, I'm interested to get your thoughts on this. Adobe released a study this year on the global economy, and it found that 70% of American creative entrepreneurs and just Americans in general value a society of creatives, and they also value a clip of 64% believe that creativity contributes to the economy. So I'm curious, what comes to mind for you when you hear those statistics, and how best do you think we can continue to grow the creative economy? What are your thoughts there, my friend?
So I think you're touching on something that is very dear to me, and I love speaking about it. When we go to our normal job and we are not enjoying and loving and having fun with it, we're spending 5 days out of our 7 day work or week dealing with this. The way that we come back to life, the way that we reinvigorate ourselves, is we immerse ourselves in creative product, be it music, food, movies, television, podcasts, the cars that we drive, the clothes that we wear, the accessories that we play, the technology that we like to play with, all of that comes from creative people. And I think that the way that I like to describe it is that creatives are the soul of humanity. If we didn't have to keep the global machine of up and running throughout our lives, we would have more time to be creative. Because when we have all the necessities, when we've got food, clothing, shelter, and a little bit of excess in that, when we are not just trying to survive, but we're thriving, we have a tendency, every single person has a tendency to explore a creative outlet. Now, whether or not you're going to make any money on this, it doesn't matter. But when we are past the point of survivor mode and we're into thriving mode, we are all creative individuals. And that's because that's just in our nature. It's what we want to do. And so when Adobe brings out these things, it says that many people really appreciate it. It's true. We appreciate the product of creativity. Now, the big switch that we have to make, especially in the United States, is that we have to be okay with paying for that creativity and not be hung up on the lowest price available. I understand that everybody's dollar needs to stretch as far as it can go, but I just dealt with a customer recently who asked me, hey, I don't like this price. I'm only really willing to pay half of that. And I understand that that's kind of how we've nurtured the negotiation with creatives in our society. But he asked me, like, what's the lowest you could go? And I said, the price that I gave you originally, that's the lowest I can go. It's not that we pull numbers out of a hat, but it's actually comes from the amount of time, effort, materials that we put into the product to be able to give you the piece that you want at the level of expertise that you want it at. And I think that we just need to get kind of past that idea that great things cost something, which is why I emphasize the magic item process for creatives, especially for artistic creatives.
Yeah, and Paul, I believe that creative people, much like people with disabilities, are natural problem solvers. And I'm curious to get your opinion on how being creative can help you solve more problems, not only in business, but in all areas of life. What are your thoughts there, my friend?
Well, the expression all roads lead to Rome. It's very much true. There's no right way to do anything. There's probably 10 to 100 different avenues that can get you to the same result. The great thing about being creative is that we don't just see the one avenue towards the end, especially if we're told that's the way it has to be. We often go and find ourselves an alternate route. And so I think that's the great boon of being a creative, is that we see almost like a multiverse of opportunities for every challenge that we encounter. And it's just, we have honed ourselves, creatives have, to know what our strengths are. And so we'll naturally lean to that avenue, that one dimension that'll get us there the quickest, because we understand ourselves enough to be able to do that. So I think creativity in large by all of society is like taps into that desire to be able to do something, and the most efficient and the most exciting or the most rewarding way possible. I deal with a lot of people who are in 9-to-5 jobs who were told we have to do it a very specific way, and what they've done is they've figured out a way to kind of get the same result, but then they spend the majority of their time trying to fake people into thinking they're doing it the old way, rather than letting them do it the creative way that they've come up with, which saves everybody time and money and could help them with their workload throughout the week.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm curious to get your thoughts on whether you think there's a link or a difference between both innovation and creativity. Do you think there's a material difference between innovation and creativity, or do you think they're interconnected?
Well, I think they're definitely connected, but I think the big one is that creativity is the ability to take your wild skill sets that you've learned throughout your career, your life, whatever, and be able to apply them to a problem to get to a solution. But Innovation is ideation, and it's actually one of the things that humans do really, really well. We see a problem, and our brains can try and figure out how to solve it. That's why they say necessity is the mother of all invention. And I think that that's where innovation stands apart, because innovation comes through ideation. It's the ability to think of an idea to get it somewhere else. We can teach creativity fairly well. We can get that down to a science, but ideation, innovation is a lot harder to teach because it's coming up with an idea that no one has thought about. It's putting Steve Jobs says that the reason that innovators don't like to talk is because they don't feel that they're doing anything different. They're just taking two different things and smashing them together to create a new object. But that ability to be able to see two disparate objects and smash them together to create a third better outcome is what makes them stand apart. And so innovation really comes down to ideation. And that's a skill you've got to learn, nurture, or just naturally have.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Paul, I'm also wondering your thoughts on this. I am someone that believes that life is a grand adventure and it takes more energy to be angry than it does to be happy. And so
Absolutely.
I'm curious to ask you, how being creative and embracing fun can help us to reduce stress levels and have more fun in life, my friend. What are your thoughts there?
Well, I think that a lot of people, especially creative people, they come at things from a point of joy. Now, the art that a lot of artists produce come from a place of pain. Comedians come from a pain point as well, and but they're trying to spin joy out of it. Now, I think that what happens is that we get bored really quickly with the way things are, and that boredom leads to frustration. That frustration leads to anger, and especially if we're doing repetitive things in our job, because we're not robots, we're human beings, we're these animals that need more stimulus rather than just repetition. And whether that's being able to listen to a book on tape while you're doing a same job over and over, or music, or just having some other kind of distraction, that helps us. I think that when that's taken away from us, and when we're confined into a very specific role, that's what leads to that anger and that depression, because that's not natural for us. We naturally want to get out and do more, which is why I think that approaching business as an adventure as opposed to a job makes a huge difference. It's a mindset thing too, because don't get me wrong, entrepreneurship is a challenge. It's not the easiest walk in the park. It's work. But if you can change the way that you approach it and the way that you think about it, you can actually make that adventure more fun. I like to tell people our slogan for Gamify business is an adventure, don't be an NPC, which stands for non-playable character. And what that means is, like, be the hero of your own adventure, and then go out there and enjoy every aspect of it. Don't let life pass you by, because unlike a game, we only get one life here. So make the best of this adventure that you can.
Yeah, absolutely. And Paul, I've got two questions left for you, and they're a bit on the fun side, my friend. I know that you're a dad, and I know that you probably use your family as a sort of a test case for how to have fun, my friend. So tell me, what's the best part about being a dad, and what inspiration do you take from your kids?
I think I have three boys, and every single one of them is completely different. And my wife is also creative. She's a costume designer, and so between me and her, obviously we've raised some pretty creative kids. But what I've found to be truly inspiring in them is that even coming from two very creative parents who have very specific avenues in which they express their creativity, each of my children have found a way to breathe life into a new facet of creativity that we didn't have anything to do with. My oldest son right now is in art school in college, pursuing animation and puppetry. My middle kid is huge into music, and then my youngest kid is a game designer at 11 years old. We basically have nurtured that aspect in all of them. We tell them that it's good to try these things, to be innovative, to try stuff that would, other people might say, no, that's not worth the pursuit. And I love being able to see how they're growing and coming into their own, because their choices in life, much like everyone else's choices in life, create the person that they are. And even though, it's an argument for nature versus nurture. Obviously we have nurtured them to be creative, but nature itself has created their personalities. And so we learn a lot from being able to observe them and how they think and perceive the world that we're in.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Paul, my final question has to do with legacy, my friend, because I believe that life, we're all given a standard deck of 52 playing cards in life, Paul, and that we're responsible for sort of shuffling them in the direction that we want our life compass to point. So when you look at your own life and your own legacy, my friend, how do you want that to be defined in the work that you do and the life that you lead, my friend? What are your thoughts then?
I think the biggest legacy that I want to leave behind is that I'm not here to be the superstar. I'm not here to be the best, the most famous. I'm here to lift everyone else up. I take the mantle of Santa very seriously. I want to bring joy to as many people as I can. And I hope that through the gamification process or just the art that I create, that people understand that everyone's journey is unique and that they're special. And I hope that when my game is over, whatever date that might be, that they look back and say he did everything he could to try and better the world, and even if it's just one person at a time, as opposed to just trying to get ahead regardless of who he steps on. So
Yeah,
that's really the legacy I'm after.
yeah, absolutely. And finally, Paul, tell me if people want to get connected with you, what's the best way they can do that?
You can go to gamifybusiness.com. And if you go to gamifybusiness.com/podcast, just the word podcast, you can actually get the first two chapters of my book for free. So you can kind of check it out and see what gamification actually could do for you.
Absolutely, my friend. And Paul, I have to tell you, this was a lively and energetic conversation. So I want to thank you for bringing your A game to the conversation, and for all the good work that you do to put a little bit more fun in life, my friend. You're really leading an exciting and exhilarating life, my friend. And I want to thank you for a few minutes for engaging in conversation. It's most appreciated, my friend.
Thank you, Kevin. I really, truly appreciate the opportunity.